Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news. Lots to discuss this morning. We've got a new striker target, injuries at Old Trafford. We've got an update on Dorgu. Gary Neville has spoken about INEOS, backed INEOS. I think you can read from that. Very disappointing. We'll certainly get into that as well. What else have we got to talk about? Jadon Sancho. Chelsea want to give him back. No, there is no policy of returns on Jadon Sancho. This is not a bloody shirt that you've bought from John Lewis. There is no returns policy. You've signed the contract. He's your player. We don't want him back. So we'll be talking about that as well. And a few other bits. Danny Welbeck to Manchester United as well. That was one thing Gary Neville said last night, which, I mean, Ricky will be over the moon this morning. He would absolutely love that. Also, Ange Postecoglou talking about Manchester United. I think there was some respect, actually, between Ange and Amorim in their press conferences. Probably because they're in very, very similar situations, aren't they? And they probably realise that if they big each other up, they might keep themselves in a job a little bit longer. So lots to get into this morning. Hope you're doing well. Sorry a little bit late. It is a Saturday morning though, so we can just chill a little bit. Not that I'm on time all the time. Anyway, we've had a super chat come in here from Zero Connection. People need to stop calling Ruben a fraud. No pilot could fly Da Vinci Aviation Designs and no manager could coach this squad. No disrespect to Leonardo. There we go. Interesting start. There we go. Yeah, look, Jadon Sancho's got his freedom. What's he done with that freedom? Absolutely sod all. But yeah, I mean, look, you can see what you like. Did you see Lucas tweet about Sancho? I'll tell you what I'll say about Lucas. If you want to get on board with somebody because they did a funny tweet, freedom, that's up to you. This is the same guy who spreads bullshit about our football club constantly. So if you want to be a little flip-flop and start backing Lucas because he said something funny about Sancho, that's up to you. It's also the same guy who constantly leaks stuff out from his made-up sources. That, as I said, 2 days ago, he's saying stuff about, dressing room sources, Ruben Amorim is really distant and has his favourites. My dressing room sources say absolute nonsense. Amorim actually speaks to us all the time, individually and collectively, and is really encouraging. So, but he did a Sancho tweet, so he must be a nice guy. Yeah, okay. You follow that. And the rest of you follow this, and you lot can go with him, and I'll keep the people that are decent over here. I don't want anything to do with people that think that outlet or journalist is a positive for Manchester United, to be honest with you. Back to proper conversation, though. Bram has gifted a membership. Thank you very much for that. Let's talk about Ben Jacobs, a good journalist. And can I just say as well, very important, we give journalists a lot of stick around Manchester United, but that's because they're not journalists. They are client journalists. They feed stuff out that they don't actually scrutinise themselves. Yesterday, some very sad news about Patrick Barkley, who passed away in his late 70s. Used to do Sunday Supplement on Sky. One of the old school journalists who actually did journalism, actually wrote articles, opinion pieces and dug up stuff, and a proper journalist who passed away yesterday. So I think that there are still one or two out there, but they are a dying breed, unfortunately, and thoughts and prayers are with him, his family and friends, because he was a very good journalist. I used to enjoy Sunday Supplement and spoke with opinion and authority, unlike the prats we have these days. Let's get it. Well, I do agree with that. I feel that fan content, especially this, has become the new journalistic place because it's opinion. And, you know, we did that piece on yesterday about Glazers and INEOS and Nice. We did the bit about the regeneration and the land that had been hidden by the media. It's not our responsibility to do it. Like, that's what they went to college to do. That's what they got the blue tick for. But they're just bloody there, begging like Oliver Twist. Can I have some more news? Can I have some more news from the club? Come on. It's not journalism, is it? Anyway, a journalist I do like is Ben Jacobs. This is what he's had to say. Victor Osimhen is on Manchester United's radar and has admirers at the club. He is expected to leave Napoli this summer and is ready for a new challenge in European football. So, would you take Victor Osimhen at Manchester United? Of course I would. I think that obviously, the Gyökeres story was a little bit disappointing on Thursday, and I would like that player. Maybe it was Wednesday? I think it was Wednesday, actually. I would like a player like Gyökeres at Manchester United. I think the way he plays the game would obviously suit an Amorim system. That's not rocket science. He played under Amorim, so he is that mobile striker that is more than happy to play up on the last man, run the channels, hold the ball up, etc. So I would like a striker like that, and I think Victor Osimhen fits into that category of being a striker that can play up there on his own. He's experienced, and obviously, I think Victor Osimhen would probably be of the quality to take Arsenal to the next level where they could win a league title. So I can't sit here and say I don't want Victor Osimhen at Man United. I mean, I genuinely think if Arsenal had Victor Osimhen, they'd win the league. So, of course, we're a bottom half team living off reputation. Of course, I'm going to want Victor Osimhen at Manchester United, and I think everybody else would as well. And it's interesting that it's being mentioned, but I'm not accusing Ben Jacobs of spinning anything here, but I think we also have to scrutinise the news and say that Laurie Whitwell 2 days ago, obviously well sourced from the club, somebody at the club or somebody very close to the club has said to Laurie, this Gyökeres story is getting a bit out of hand. He's not going to come to Man United. It's very unlikely he's going to come. So we need a story out there to sort of just kill the hope. And hence the story goes out about Gyökeres, £60 million being too much for a striker that's going to be 27 in the summer. So on the one hand, we kill the Gyökeres story for 60 million for a 27-year-old. On the other hand, a couple of days later, there's a story about Osimhen, who will be 27 in December and will cost about £60 million. And you go, well, hold on a minute, this doesn't make sense. But welcome to the world of Manchester United. They absolutely love hype and story and bluster. So on the one hand, let's kill the Gyökeres story because it's not going to happen. Oh, now everybody's depressed and they're saying we're just going to get nobody. Osimhen, talk about him. We won't kill that story. We'll keep that story going out there because that's a bit of, social media integration and interest and etc. So it's never going to be in Man United's interest to say we can't buy anybody, but then they've got to balance that with, well, Amorim says we've got to sell to buy. So there always is going to be hype around players because it plays into the Man United machine that they need that. And it's been in their shareholders' meetings before. They actually have that in the shareholders' meetings where they'll go, oh, interaction on social media has gone up 50%. Transfer stories are doing really, really well. So they're always going to throw that out there. But all I would say is we as fans have a lot going on at the moment. We're going to talk about what Gary Neville said next about INEOS and effectively backing them. There are protests starting up again. There are some people on the fence. There are some people pro INEOS. There's a lot of people very unhappy with the way the club's being run at the moment. And I think that in that climate, you've got to challenge and question. And gone are the times where we can just sit back and trust how the club's being run and not scrutinise and analyse stories. Victor Osimhen's 27 this year. So's Gyökeres. They're both £60 million. One player we don't want to pay £60 million for a 27-year-old. The other one we're happy to be linked to. So tell me the truth. What is the truth? I'd rather get Gyökeres than Osimhen anyway. They're the same age and they're the same price. So we're out the Gyökeres race, but we're in the Osimhen race. And it's just completely and utterly hypocritical. Doesn't make any bloody sense at all. Look, maybe we will sign Osimhen. Don't know where we're going to get the money from that. Maybe we're out the Gyökeres race because, I don't know, maybe he doesn't want to come to Manchester United, but it doesn't make any bloody sense, does it? You can't, on the one hand, say we don't want a 27-year-old for 60 million. We want to go for younger players. Oh, we'll get Victor Osimhen for 27, who's 27 for 60 million. So yeah, you've got to look at the news and look. When Laurie Whitwell put that out through The Athletic about Gyökeres, that's not coming out from the bloody Sun. That's coming out from The Athletic. That's coming out from somebody that is part of that sort of club-fed information circle, and that will be coming from, I mean, I can't say where that's coming from, but I'd say it'd be coming from a very good source. So I don't know what we're going to end up with as a striker, but I would say actually, let's just sort of wrap it up here. If you had a choice between Gyökeres for 60 million and Osimhen for 60 million, I think most people, well, let's do a poll. Let's do a poll on it. Either or, who would you go for? Because in my opinion, one of them has one of them has played for Amorim. One of them hasn't. One of them has had a very settled, hard-working last couple of years. One of them's been a bit unsettled. So I think I would go Gyökeres over the two because he's played for Amorim before and he's not had upheaval with his club. So, look, maybe Osimhen's got a bit of an ego. Maybe he's a bit disruptive. Maybe he's been unlucky at Napoli. I don't know. But I think I'd go for Gyökeres over Osimhen. And yet we're not going for Gyökeres, but we might go for Osimhen. And this is really important because we talk about this football club and we talk about stability, personality, consistency. And out of those two players, we've binned off the one that gives a bit of stability and consistency based on what we've just said. But we're still in for the one who's a little bit volatile. I'd be happy with both. I'd be happy with both. I'd be happy with either. But I'm just saying the hypocrisy of the Gyökeres story compared to the Osimhen story is glaringly obvious, isn't it? Was that the only one? They all sat around the table on Sky Sports. Used to love that. I remember him well. Rest in peace, Patrick Partly. Yeah, Sunday morning, Sunday supplement. I mean, Brian Warner used to do it years ago. That was really good. But yeah, I used to really enjoy that. That was when journalists were journalists. And they basically used to have a Sunday morning show on Sky Sports, sit round a table. And they were all reputable journalists. And they'd just talk about the Sunday papers and the big talking points. And they'd really get into people like, you know, Sir Alex or Wenger or stuff like that. They'd really go into them. Never happen now. If you did a show like that now, you'd have a club going, I heard what you said there. I mean, you know, get back on track. Put this out there. Chelsea can keep the freedom fighter, says Muriaki, and Bram says has gifted a membership. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Just a bit of a reminder from us this morning. The Dublin show is going ahead, as we know. It's coming up for a month time in Dublin, Temple Bar, the Olympia Theatre, massive venue, still tickets available. Links in the video description, or you can scan that QR code next to me. It'd be great to see you there. It's going to be a fantastic show. Rory C says, way easier to spin not getting Osimhen when we fail to get him. Not as easy to spin with Gyökeres given his past with Amorim. Good observations, Rory. I like that. Also, James Cave with a super chat says, morning, Mark. It's obvious that United are creating a smokescreen of conflicting stories to cover themselves in case we don't get into Europe and need a cheap summer. It's so transparent, says James Cave. Interesting talking about strikers because we're gonna talk about Gary Neville. He's finally spoken about the job cuts and INEOS, and it's for you to decide what you think about it. I'm really disappointed. I'm not here to throw stones at Gary Neville. I have done in the past in relation to some of his opinions, but I think this is too serious to start doing, you know, that. I'm just disappointed by what I've read because he's not stupid. He's up at 3:30 every morning. He's a businessman. He's worth billions of pounds. Obviously, he's part of this regeneration project with INEOS and the Manchester Council and the government, etc. So I'm disappointed because I think he's conflicted. I think he's in a position of where he has a conflict of interests, where he actually has put himself in a position where he can't criticise INEOS. And I think that's a real shame when we've got potential protests kicking off and, you know, somebody that has been massively one of the biggest voices in the media, whether you like it or not, clearly will not be on the side of the protests. And I think that's really difficult for United fans because you need as many people as possible. A lot of people don't like the United stand, but they'll go, the community it has, you need them promoting the protests. And I see other people that like that in the space, and I look at someone like Gary Neville and I go, if he was vocal about these protests as well, he's on mainstream TV, it would be absolutely massive. So I'm very, very disappointed, if not surprised, because as we know, there are connections now with Neville and the regeneration of Old Trafford that's going to be worth a lot of money. But anybody will tell you what's more important, money or morals. There's some things more important than money. You're talking about millions of people's emotions and care for a football club that goes beyond money, whether it's Busby Babes, Class of 92, Brian Robson, you know, the club, Sir Matt, Sir Alex, your own personal memories. Manchester United is not about the regeneration of the, you know, Trafford area or, you know, maintaining the Glazers. It's something more pure than that. You can't put a price on that. So disappointed is the word, because I just think the impact. I just don't think. I don't look at Gary Neville as that. I know he can be annoying, but I've always thought he was a you look at some of his political leanings, and I actually always thought he was a little bit more socially aware. I know I've heard people saying he's not. It's all about money for Gary Neville and it's all a front. But I think as a Man United legend, and he's not really bothered about knocking down Old Trafford, even though he played there loads of times. He's not really bothered about the protests. INEOS are making a mess, but not really going to say too much about it. It's disappointing because you need people in the media who are going to be a champion of this, and I don't think we're going to get it there. I hope to be wrong. But look, anyway, let me tell you what he said. First of all, I want to start on a positive. I don't know whether you watched the Champagne Socialist, says Ranko. I don't know whether you watched the Brighton-Chelsea game last night. I want to circle back to Sancho in a little bit, but he did say Danny Welbeck actually at Man United would have been, or would still be, a good striker option for Man United. Not as the main striker, but as a selection of strikers. If you had 3 strikers and Danny Welbeck was one of them. I do agree with him on it. I know Ricky's been massive about this for years. We never should have let Danny Welbeck go, really. I just think he was the wrong player at the wrong time with the managers that we had. But you look at Danny Welbeck's consistency over the last sort of 5-6 years, and I think he would have been a really valuable player to keep around Manchester United. But look, I think he's 35 this year. I don't want Danny Welbeck to be our striker in the summer. I've got to say, 100% that can't be our summer signing, because INEOS will be going, at the end of the day, this is a great deal. But I thought that was an intelligent football take, and it's one that Ricky's made before, and it's one that I agree with. Danny Welbeck could not be our alternative to Gyökeres or Osimhen, but he could have been over the last few years the sort of Chicharito sort of player that starts some games off the bench for others, and he would have been a very good player to have around because his work ethic and professionalism is fantastic. So I do agree with that, to start off with that positive. But John says Gary unfortunately is in bed with INEOS, which puts him in bed with the Glazers. They're all trying to get their piece of the pie, and it's very sad. Well, look, let me just read this. Gary Neville apparently was 50 at some point this week, so he's done an interview. And look, there's a couple of things. He sort of spoke about the sackings, which I want to talk about, and I'll come back to that. But this is what he's had to say about INEOS and the situation at Manchester United. Basically saying, when they came in, my preference would have been for a complete takeover and for the Glazer family to leave. And it still would be, because ultimately they've run their course. But at least there's been disruption with INEOS. You've got to give INEOS 3 or 4 years to try and work out what the hell's going on. 6 months in, they found it bloody hard. It's an oil tanker. Until you're in there, you can't understand the scale of United and the enormity of everything. From keeping Ten Hag to the decision to bringing Dan Ashworth and then for him to leave, they're obviously finding it tough. But there's no doubt there's been turbulence and wrong decisions made. The club needs a shake. There's a lot that needs changing. To be fair, there's a new CEO, a new sporting director. Well, there isn't. They've gone. New technical director, new CFO. You've got complete and utter transformation in 6 months. So, but what Gary is basically saying is, and I think the big line for me was, you've got to give INEOS 3 or 4 years to try and work out what the hell's going on. I mean, that statement for me is absolutely terrifying. You've got to give INEOS 3 or 4 years to find out what's going on. 3 or 4 years. 3 or 4 years. Are you mad? Talking about 3 or 4 years like it's 3 or 4 weeks. 3 or 4 years to figure out what's going on. I'll tell him in 3 or 4 minutes what's going on. The club's fucked. It's in massive debt. You're talking about selling to buy players. You're raising ticket prices. You're sacking people. You're cutting money to charities. 3 or 4 years. They know the state of Manchester United. It took them a bloody year to buy it because they were looking under the bonnet. I mean, the way people get treated is hilarious. Yeah, INEOS are here. They need 3 or 4 years to find out what's going on. It's like they're bloody building a spaceship. It's a fucking football club. They own one called Nice. It's not a bloody spaceship engine. It's not fixing the Millennium Falcon. It's a football club. And you know, all the months before they bought Man United, you know what was happening then? Looking under the bonnet at the accounts, this, that, and the other. You're acting like it's some bloody, Mission Impossible or the Crystal Maze. It's a football club that they took months to buy while numerous accountants and financial analysts scrutinised what was going on at the club. Why do people keep talking like INEOS need 3 or 4 years to understand what's going on? I know what's going on. I've never even bloody looked at the accounts. It's bloody obvious what's going on. We're paying massive amounts of money every year on debt interest, which is applicable to PSR, which completely screws us up for buying players. We're also in hundreds of millions of pounds of debt anyway, and we owe hundreds of millions of pounds on transfers we've already bought. We are sinking like a bloody ship, but we've got to give INEOS 3 or 4 years. What to do what? What are they going to do in 3 or 4 years? Keep cutting, keep cutting, keep cutting. And the amazing thing is as well, is when he says, and when everybody else says, you've got to give INEOS 3 or 4 years to sort out the Glazer mess. Gary, the Glazers are still here, mate. They own the club, not INEOS. INEOS own 29%. Give them 3 or 4 years. Why are you talking like they've bought the club, Gary? They haven't. The Glazers own the club. 3 or 4 years to do what? Anything they do has to be signed off by the Glazers. If Sir Jim Ratcliffe says, I want to sell Garnacho, Joel Glazer signs it off. If Sir Jim Ratcliffe says, I think we should knock Old Trafford down, or I think we should raise ticket prices, Joel Glazer has to sign it off. It's this mythical fantasy world that these people are spinning around that does my head in. It's so disappointing. It's so disappointing that people are talking about, you've got to give INEOS time. You've got to give them 3 or 4 years. The Glazers have caused all this. They're still here, mate. They're still here. They're actually still here. So I read this article from Gary Neville, and basically he's saying the last 10 years is on the Glazers. They've made all these big mistakes. It's the Glazers who've done this. I wanted them out. I wanted a full sale. You know, they've done their damage. They've caused all the problem over the last 10 years. INEOS have come in. They've made mistakes. But look, there's so much to do there. There's so much to figure out. They need 3 or 4 years to figure it out. But like many other people, Gary Neville's talking like INEOS have bought the club. They haven't bought the club. 3 or 4 years to basically get signed off by the Glazers. This is not what people are trying to sell you. This is not INEOS-owned Manchester United. It is still owned by the Glazers, and they bailed the Glazers out. I would love Gary Neville to be asked the question, you sat there saying INEOS need 3 or 4 years and they've caused disruption. Yeah, they have caused disruption. You know what disruption they've caused? By getting into bed with the Glazers, Gary. You're sat here saying the Glazers have caused all this. What's your thought on Sir Jim Ratcliffe bailing the Glazers out and now working with them, under them, with 28%? What's your answer to that? But again, crap journalism. I would imagine Gary Neville did an interview for his 50th and said, I'm not going to answer this, this and this, but I will say this. They don't answer the questions anymore. It's client journalism. It's my 50th birthday. I will talk about positives. I'll only talk about slagging the Glazers off. I don't want to be scrutinised on INEOS other than 3 or 4 years. It's going to be a lot of job. It's a hard job for them, you know. Yeah, but what about the fact that they bailed the Glazers out? What about the fact they're working with the Glazers? You're talking about 3 or 4 years. It's 3 or 4 years of the Glazers, mate. They own the club. Well, I'm not talking about that, or we don't get that. Simple, isn't it? The second thing that really disappointed me as well is he spoke about again, Ian Wright on the overlap this week mentioned cuts, and we got a cut from the overlap because Gary Neville, there was no conversation about it. This is about as good as it gets. He said the last 10 years to run a football club without a football department is absolutely bizarre. How that could not be seen by either the Glazer family or by the executive that was in place is madness. I agree with that, but they are still here. He then says, when I left, 500 to 600 people were working at United. That went to 1,200. How has that happened? And then that's it. So, look, if Gary Neville's been misquoted there, he needs to come out and say something. But that reads to me, the club's been run like a mess. When I was there, 600 people worked there. Then it went to 1,200. That is, how has that happened? So that reads to me that he's on board with the cuts because he thinks too many people are working at that football club. Which, again, some of you will agree with and go, well, I've got to be blunt. Like, if we've doubled our working staff over the last 10 years, but the club's not performing, then obviously that is bad. But my stance is very clear on this. Gary Neville is a man of the people, a local lad who is all about regeneration. He's got a university, he's got a hotel, he's got a football club. He's all about that. You can't then be, well, there's too many people working there, so, you know, they need to cut, they need to sack people, because these are Manchester people. These are not worldwide employees. These are predominantly people who live and work in Manchester, who've had their jobs taken away from them. And does Gary Neville know what these people did? Were they a waste of time, or is it just cuts to save money? I don't like it when Simon Jordan or Gary Neville pass comments like that it's good that people have been sacked, because we don't know what they've been sacked from. We don't know whether we need those people or whether we don't need those people. But fundamentally, there's only one argument to be had here. You cannot sit there and say, well, you know, these people deserve to be sacked. You don't know them, you don't know the circumstances, and you don't know their jobs. It is mercenary. It lacks compassion, and these are people who are probably earning £40,000 a year with a mortgage, maybe kids, maybe people to support, and we're just going to go, well, there's too many jobs there, let's get rid of them. I think it's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting, and I'm really disappointed in Gary Neville, because politically he stands for so much more than that, and you're basically making 500-600 people unemployed just because you think there's too many people working there. Hold on a minute. I'm not saying that Man United shouldn't be reevaluating their workforce and, you know, making savings, but let's not get this mixed up. That's not the only way we could save money. We're sacking people to save money so we can buy players in the summer. That's what we're doing. And we paid, was it 30 or 60 million pounds in debt interest payments last year? I just think it's really disappointing that subtly Neville is basically saying, yeah, those people need to lose their job. But Casemiro's on 350 grand a week. We're paying tens of millions of pounds a year on debt interest. Like, we're sacking people. We're putting them, you know, without a job. On the other hand, let's keep paying the debt interest on the Glazers. And that's where I am on this. I absolutely am adamantly against people losing their jobs, good people losing their jobs. I'm absolutely against that. And I'm absolutely against it, because this is working people against a corporate machine. And guess what happened? Guess who the deadwood is? It's the working man, and it's the working woman. It's the working people. That's not what Gary Neville's about. That's not what Labour's about. Labour's about unions and protecting its workers. And now suddenly he's sat there like a bloody Conservative saying, well, you know, when I was there, the workforce was 600. It's now 1,200. How has that happened? We need, you know, and he didn't follow it up, but I think we can all read between the lines. What he's saying there is people need to be sacked. But that's not a Labour way, is it? That's a bloody Conservative way. That's corporate. That's mercenary. The bottom line is, we'll move back to football, but the bottom line is we are sacking working people to save money for the club, whilst the club pays tens of millions of pounds on interest debt accrued by the Glazers. And while certain footballers who are never playing or never fit are on hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, that is my issue here. You can all look at it and go, well, they need to be sacked because we need to cut the workforce down, but they shouldn't be the first things going. That's my point. So I'm very disappointed, because I didn't think that Gary Neville stood for all that. And I think that maybe this relationship with INEOS around the regeneration makes him very, very much. And the worrying thing is, because he works for Sky and because he commentates on games, he's got such an influential voice. But is that voice now very much on the side where most Man United fans aren't? You know, is it just, I'm going to protect the Glazers and protect... Well, look, he probably doesn't think he is protecting the Glazers, but he is, because INEOS work for the Glazers. So if you're protecting INEOS, you're protecting the Glazers. This is the way it works. Don't have a problem with cost cutting, but they started at the wrong end of the table. Exactly, Mateus. Kieran Maguire, Guardian piece on United finances today, says Anthony. I'll have a look at that, and we might do a video later. Mark, the plan, they sell all the land and we move into the Etihad. We become Munich 1860. They walk away with millions. We don't need any staff, says John. As if Neville knew how many people worked at Old Trafford when he was there. He's just reading the lines he's being given, says James Guy. Neville is involved in the new stadium and co-owns Hotel Football on the land owned by the Glazers and INEOS. He'll always stick up for these new owners, says Matthew. I think Osimhen for 60 million is a steal and Amorim needs that and knows he's better, says Emmanuel. INEOS used Luzon as a test run for Nice. Nice is a test run for United. They should know their stuff by now, says Rory C. Yeah, you can check out the video we did on INEOS running Nice last night. It's an interesting watch. Gary, unfortunately, is in bed with INEOS, which puts him in bed with the Glazers. They are all trying to get their piece of the pie, and it's very sad, says Sidor. Disappointing to see Neville acting in self-interest, says Patrick Lynch. Look, I do feel sorry for Gary Neville in the sense that when he signed up for the regeneration with INEOS and the government, at that time, INEOS was still buzzy and new, but they've fallen off a cliff in the last 3 months with the United fan base, and he might have signed something. So he's balls deep into that deal, isn't he? It's a precarious position. Look, he's going to make a lot of money out of it, I would imagine, but I think when he signed up to the INEOS and project of regeneration, it was like local guy doing good things for local community, which it still is. The problem is INEOS don't own the club, the Glazers do. So INEOS are owned by the Glazers, so therefore you're working for the Glazers. These things just need to be put out there. It's not propaganda, it's not a lie. INEOS don't own Man United, the Glazers do. So INEOS work for the Glazers, and anyone who works for INEOS works for the Glazers. It's as simple as that. It's not speculative. It's not a lie, is it? The Glazers own Man United. They make the decisions. INEOS own a little bit of Man United, so therefore they work for the Glazers, and anyone who works for INEOS works for the Glazers. It's obvious. They're fishing for Osimhen because they'll hope to do a swap deal with Garnacho, says Sidor. Thank you very much. And Man United Fan for Life says, hi Mark, hope you're well. We need to sort this whole ownership thing out fast and bring back the glory days. I think we're, mate, over the years we've had this question, when will Man United win the league? I think we've never been further away. Since Sir Alex Ferguson left, I don't think we've ever been further away. I mean, that's a horrible thing to say on a Saturday morning, isn't it? But when you think about it, I genuinely think, even with Moyes, even with Van Gaal, even with Ollie, even with Jose, even with Rangnick, I don't think we've ever been further away from winning a title. Because even that first season of Moyes, when we finished 8th, we were only a year away from winning a title, and you still felt Moyes is shit, get a good manager in, we could be back in a year or two. I think I've always thought we might be 2 or 3 years away from getting back in a title race. Nowadays, I don't even think 5. I just don't think we're anywhere near winning it. In every aspect of that football club, I just think we're miles off. Ownership, debt, squad. Yeah, I just think we're absolutely miles off. Who would you rather bring, Jamie Vardy or Calvert-Lewin, says Ben? You're that close to getting blocked, mate. Absolutely. If you're up to me, says Juan, after we get Quenda, I'd go for Napoli's keeper. Yeah, I can't read all those players out, mate. It's just not going to happen. My biggest fear is if Man United buy either Osimhen or Gyökeres, there are not wingers to produce service for them, says Catch. Yeah, going back to what Juan said there, I mean, he's just got a big list of players like Mere, Yepes, Gomez, Jonathan David. All their contracts expire in the summer. I just, as I've said before, I don't think free agents actually work out that economically well, because if you buy Dorgu for 20 million and you spread that out over 3 years, you're paying about, what, £7 million a year, and his wages are about 40 grand. So it's not actually that expensive to buy Dorgu over a 3-year contract, three-year installments, and his wages are low. If you buy Jonathan David for free, he's going to be more expensive than Dorgu because he's going to want probably north of 100k a week because he's a free transfer. He's going to want a signing on fee. His agent's going to want a fee. And we spent a lot of money on Eriksen. Everyone goes, oh, Eriksen was a free transfer. I bet when you add Eriksen up, he's cost more than players we bought under Ten Hag. I mean, 150 grand a week for a start is, what, 600 grand a month? So It's over £7 million a year in wages. What was his signing on fee? What did his agent get? So I think people get lost on free transfers and think, oh, it's free money, it's a free player. But actually, it doesn't take long. I mean, you look at Lenny Yoro. Lenny Yoro is going to cost us about £50 million over 5 years. It's $10 million a year. And I don't know what his wage is, but we paid nothing for Christian Eriksen. But actually, it wouldn't take long over 3 years for Christian Eriksen to be pushing towards what we're going to pay for Lenny Yoro, because you end up spending a lot of money on free transfers. I see that boy's Monoxide says, I feel so sorry for any striker coming to United. I hope they watch some games and understand no service and the pressure they will be under. I mean, of course, we've got a game tomorrow, haven't we? Which I wanted to touch on very quickly. Who do you think the injured players are? You know, Amorim said that we've had a couple of players who need late fitness tests. There's all sorts of rumours going round as to who those players are. I've tried to find out, and I know who they are, but I'm not going to say it because I don't want to be the person who puts it out there. And obviously, I'll get pelters for it because people will go, oh, look, you know, he's letting Spurs know the team and that. I don't know who it is, really. I'm joking. Would I tell you if I did? I don't know. I think you've got to have a moral compass there, really, to put that out. I wouldn't want to be the first one putting that out. But I don't know. I don't know who it is. Honestly, I don't. And to be honest, I haven't asked. I think when you have certain sources, there's certain things you ask and there's certain things you don't. Like, I needed to ask a couple of people about that Luckhurst story because I was just like, it's bollocks, isn't it? And obviously they said it was. But I couldn't go and say who's injured because I don't think I'd get told because they'd probably go, well, what are you going to do with that information? I have a feeling it could be two players that... I have a feeling it might be De Ligt and Ahmad or Ugarte and Maguire. I don't think it'll be Bruno because Bruno's a robot. I don't think it'll be a striker because I don't think either striker's really hot at the moment enough for it to be a massive blow if one of them was out. I think it will be like Garnacho, Ahmad, Ugarte, Mainu, Maguire, De Ligt, those sort of players. And remember, De Ligt hasn't played for the last couple of games. Like Robert McCormack says, he's been on the bench because he has been nursing an injury. So I'm sort of like, I wonder if it is like De Ligt. But to be honest with you, I've got to be completely honest. The injury crisis at Man United never went. We've never got past the injury crisis. What's happened is, and we all know this because Amorim has basically said it, the fitness department is a mess. We still have Mason Mount, Martinez, Luke Shaw, Johnny Evans, Victor Lindelof's only just come back. We actually have been carrying a lot of injuries. They're just to players that you expect to be injured. So we've actually had quite a steady run of injuries anyway. And on top of that, the reason it's not been as bad as last year, which was just like chaos, is because Ruben Amorim has been told by the fitness department, only play this player for 60 minutes, and that's why sometimes in games you'll see a player that's playing well and you'll go, why is he bringing Ugarte off? But it will be because the fitness department are absolutely shitting themselves and need to cover their own arse. So they'll go, he can only play 60 minutes. Puts it onto Amorim then, and Amorim's in the position where he's like, as soon as 60 minutes comes, he's like, if I keep playing him now and he gets injured, I will get the blame for that. So we've got a lot of players that actually can't play 90 minutes. And we're taking them off early because of fitness reasons. That's why the injury record is slightly better. But it's thin ice. It's thin ice and it can break at any point. If we lose a couple of players tomorrow, I mean, I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow because I think Spurs versus Man United is more interesting in the sense of can either of us actually rescue our season with an Europa League win? Because that's all we've got. I mean, we have got the FA Cup as well. They haven't. But I think Spurs-Man United is almost a battle of who's the shittest out of the traditional top six. So it's going to be very interesting. I just hope with the injuries that they're not long-term because if it was, say, Ahmad for a couple of games, Europa League and FA Cup isn't till March. So a couple of weeks, the Cup's the priority for me. But if it's something long, I think we're in real trouble. There's no way they'll give the manager 3 or 4 years while INEOS pretend to own the club. It sounds like he's just trying to buy more time for them, says John. Look, going back to that statement, if you are somebody that is pretending that INEOS own the club and is giving them 3 to 4 years, wake up, get yourself a pint of coffee. In fact, put a load of coffee in your bloody water tank and have a shower in coffee, hot, steaming coffee to wake you up. What are you talking about? 3 to 4 years for INEOS to turn things round? They don't own the bloody club. They're pretending to own the club. The Glazers own the club. It's the same as the last 11 years. We're still Glazer owned. Wake up. Today's my brother's wedding. Mark, please wish him well. That's from Ian. Happy birthday. Congratulations to your brother. I hope he has a fantastic day. Hargreaves slated the medical department when he left. He had his own issues, of course. It'd be interesting to know how much the staff has changed, says James. I think last time I checked, we had people in the fitness department that have been there for 11 years, 6 years. I don't think they've gone. I don't think they have. Well done, Sir David Brailsford, on your strategic review. We thought you were right into fitness and stuff. I don't think they've got rid of people that have been there for over a decade. Let's talk about... this made a bit of light relief here, actually. Where did I read this? Where did I read this today? Oh, I'll find it. Anyway, I want to talk about Sancho as well. But I need to just find this because it did really make me laugh. Where can I find it? Would be this one. Okay. Basically, Amorim was talking about Dorgu. On Garnacho, he said, Garnacho is improving, he's enjoying himself, he's confident, and he's good in 1v1s. These kind of details in a player like him are important. On Dorgu, he said, this will make you laugh on a Saturday morning. We're working with him, and he understands better the way we want to play. He has some habits from his old club, so we had to change things, but he has had a good week. Now, I don't know whether you read that and you laugh. I actually was lying in bed on my phone with a cup of tea, and I read that this morning, and I nearly spat it out on the sheets, and Mrs. Goldbridge would have gone mad because you don't want tea stains on your sheets. The reason I laughed is because when Amorim's, look, I like Amorim and I like Dorgu, and it's not his fault, but when he said it just reminded me, like, it's the sort of stuff Ten Hag would say, like, I've bought this player, and although he's really fit and he's a good footballer, he's got to get used to Man United first, and I'm not going to play him for about 2 months. And you're like, yeah, but he was playing better football at a club that plays better football than us, and you want him to adjust to our football. And that's sort of like when I read Amorim saying this, like, he's got some habits from his old club that we've had to change. And I was laughing because I was like, yeah, his habits at his old club are probably quick football, first time passing, good pressing, and energy. And we need to get rid of those things. We need him to slow down, take ages on the ball, misplace his passes, and have low energy. Because I'm like, I didn't see a lot of Dorgu when he was at Lecce, but any habits he's got at that club cannot be as bad as the habits we've got here. Like, what habits has he got at Lecce that you need to change for this club? We're shit. We're absolutely shit. Like, we can't pass. We can't press. We can't mark. We've got no energy. We're really slow. We can't pass first time. So what bad habits has he got that we need to change for this club? And I know that, look, that's not me taking the piss out of Amorim. I mean, I know seriously what he's talking about is, look, Amorim has a system. It's not working, but he does have a system, and he's trying to teach his players that system, and he's got to try and teach Dorgu that system. But it did make me laugh because I'm sort of like, we are so shit and we can't do the basics, and then we've got a player that we're going to, try and teach habits out of him for us. And what are our habits? But look, hopefully he's going to play on the left-hand side tomorrow. I thought he was a breath of fresh air in the last game, and it was down the right-hand side. So if you can get him down the left-hand side, I think it will be good. INEOS has 12 billion debt. I have higher net worth, says Parker. Mike JBA has gifted a membership. Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much for that. Let me just talk to you about Jadon Sancho. So Yeah, I mean, he didn't start for Chelsea last night. I think he came on. They lost again. Chelsea fans want to give him back. I was looking at the league table yesterday because if they finish in the bottom half, they can give him back. And some Chelsea fans were like, give the season up and let's just fall down the bottom half. And I'm like, if you try it, we'll lose as well. Yeah, if you want to play that game, we'll just keep losing as well. But he is a freedom fighter, of course. We've got to respect him. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to praise INEOS, the Glazers, Eric Ten Hag, but not everything is always exclusively bad. Like, a knobhead can crack a funny joke. Look at that journalist yesterday about Sancho. So, you know, it's... I live that world. Like, not everything is exclusively bad or exclusively good. You know, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody flukes a good result. So, I think with Jadon Sancho, a lot of people criticised the Sancho deal. And we had people in our fan base, by the way, who would, like, when Sancho first went to Chelsea, they were tweeting about him all the time. Like, Sancho FC. Like, they almost wanted him to do well and United to do badly. I mean, that's how toxic Player FC can be. There was, like, Sancho watch and all sorts of stuff going on. Which everyone's got a right to do, but it's still toxic, isn't it? Absolutely, categorically, 100% correct to get that player out of this club at any cost. I lost my shit. I was like, he's not going to Chelsea. He's not going to Chelsea. I didn't want him in the Premier League causing us problems, going somewhere else and playing well. But this is where, you know, you got to trust people like Ten Hag when he was like, just get him out. Even if it's Chelsea, get him out. And look, Ten Hag's been sacked now, and deservedly so, many would say. But you've got to respect the fact that he got it right on Sancho. He was right the first time when he got rid of him to Dortmund, and he's right again when he got rid of him to Chelsea. And the reason he's right has been exposed in 7 days. Marcus Rashford is making his debut for Aston Villa. Jadon Sancho is getting in his replies saying freedom. 5 days later, he's on the bench for Chelsea, comes on and plays shit. In that 5-day thing, Sancho has exposed what many people thought anyway. Headspace is not that of an elite footballer. You know, he's rattled by Man United when Rashford's playing that he's got to be bitter in a post. And then his opportunity after a week of being pelted by everybody, ex-players, media, everybody's had a go at him. He's on the bench, comes on the bench and he plays shit. And I think for Manchester United, no doubt he's a talented player. I don't regret anything about saying we should have got him for those 2 summers. No doubt an amazingly talented player. But he is mentally just never going to be the player that can do what he could do with that talent. And United, whether it's Chelsea, whether it's bloody Liverpool, whoever was the mug that was going to take him, can have him. So I just look at the Sancho thing and I go, you know what? At the time, I thought, what a big mistake that is, him going to Chelsea, you know, right on our doorstep, at a rival. He's at a club that are fighting for top 4. We're closer to the relegation zone, and we're sat here going, what a good deal. Who would have thought that? Chelsea would be in the top 4, we'd be near the relegation zone, and we'd still be sat here saying, thank God they've got Sancho. Like, Chelsea are in a much better position than us. And we're still going, thank God they got Sancho. So I think if there's one positive, I am absolutely ecstatic that we will get, that Sancho will be joining Manchester United, joining Chelsea. The only thing I would say is, I've spoken to a few people about this. Is there any way Chelsea can force him back to Man United? And I've been told that that deal is watertight. As long as Chelsea don't finish in the bottom half of the table, they have an obligation to buy him for £25 million. So absolutely a Chelsea player. And it becomes Chelsea's problem because Chelsea's fans are, a lot of Chelsea fans have had enough of him already. I was speaking to a Chelsea fan on Tuesday, and basically they said, you might be pissed off what he said about freedom, but Chelsea fans are pissed off as well because he's a Chelsea player taking a pop at his old club, which shows he's still rattled by his old club when he should be focusing on Chelsea. So I think he's in a look, it's Chelsea's problem is what I'm trying to say. It's not our problem anymore. And I think in hindsight, that deal to Chelsea has been an absolute super deal. And Sancho talks about freedom. Someone play Alexa, play Freedom by George Michael, because I tell you what, if anyone's got freedom, it's us. I think we've got the freedom. We don't need to worry about this player now that ultimately has been a flop, cost us 300 grand a week. He's gone. Definitely going to be gone in the summer. So I think freedom is our thing as well. So it's Chelsea's problem. And look, he's a very talented lad, and I hope he can deal with whatever bitterness he's got towards Manchester United, because he's clearly got one. But it's Chelsea's issue at the moment. And I don't see, I suppose going back to Man United winning the league, I don't see Chelsea as a rival anymore. Who do you see as our rival as Manchester United fans? Because I don't see Chelsea as our rival anymore. I don't see Arsenal as a rival. I look forward to playing them because they're always Man United against Chelsea, Man United against Arsenal, Man United against Liverpool. They're not our rivals anymore. Kevin says, thanks, my Alexa is now playing George Michael. Hey, it's a good tune on a Friday, on a Saturday morning. Yeah, I don't see those clubs as our rivals. I think they're on a different level. Chelsea have a better squad than us. They'll have more expenditure in the summer. Chelsea are going to earn £50 million in June for that stupid Club World Cup. That's pure profit revenue. And Man City. So Chelsea are going to spend money in the summer. Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal. They're all on a different level to us in competitiveness. Man United's a bigger club. Of course we are. But where we are in competitiveness, I think at the moment you've got to own where we are. And I think our immediate rivals are people like Brighton and Fulham. We've got to try and get back amongst the top 8. That's step one. Spurs are our biggest rival at the moment, and look at what they are. So tomorrow is a big game for us in the sense that we're sort of at that level, but we're so far off. And as I said last night, I think next season's going to be very similar to this season. I don't see a massive improvement next season at all. Our rivals are Southampton and Ipswich, says Roger. I wouldn't go that far. Right, thanks everybody this morning. Really enjoyed the show. Lots for you to get your thoughts in on. I'll look forward to the comments. Yeah, I think the Osimhen story is just complete and utter joke when you think about the Gyökeres story. Yeah, but I've got to say, I'm not really angry about the stuff that's come out around Neville. I'm just disappointed because over the years he's been so vocal about, you know, things that about people's rights and all that. And to me, at the moment, he's working for the Glazers because he's working for INEOS and they work for the Glazers. It's just, you need voices like that behind the protests. You need voices behind that around real change. And unfortunately, it looks like he's locked in with INEOS, who are locked in with the Glazers. So it's a shame that he's like the big voice on TV because it's we need voices like that. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. I'll speak to you on the next one. Oh, I'm live at 12:30 on That's Football for Leicester against Arsenal and then Man City Newcastle at 3 o'clock. So lots more football to come today. Looking forward to it. Take care. Speak to you in a bit.